This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. My girlfriend was maintaining ties with her first love while preparing to get engaged to me. What she didn't know was that I had long since discovered her infidelity. It was her first love, Tony, who told me. I sat on the couch, watching the makeup artist work on Hailey. My heart was full of satisfaction. The woman in front of me would soon become my wife. But Hailey seemed distracted, flipping through her phone with a blank expression. Suddenly, she stood up abruptly. Peter and I were stunned and couldn't react for a moment. Her face was full of panic, as if the sky had fallen. Ignoring my questions, Hailey dashed into the changing room and took off her dress. While putting on her shoes, she said the engagement ceremony would be canceled for today and rescheduled later. Then, without so much as a glance, she ran out. Knowing that both our families and the guests had already arrived, I couldn't and wouldn't let her ruin the day. I chased her to the parking lot and blocked her way, pleading, "Hailey, no matter what, can we at least complete the ceremony today?" My words were full of desperation. "I have something urgent to attend to. Can't we reschedule the ceremony?" When I continued to stand in her way, her face turned cold. Her demeanor shifted, becoming unrecognizably icy. "Tony was in a car accident. I have to go to the hospital." Peter and I froze. Tony was back in the country? Neither Peter nor I knew, but Hailey did. Still, I refused to give up. I bit my lip and said, "You accepted my proposal. Put on the ring I designed for you. Am I still less important than Tony? He's already in the hospital. How can you be so heartless?" she snapped, getting into the car. I reached out to grab her hand. She didn't hesitate to pull off the ring and threw it forcefully into the fountain. "Take it back," she said coldly before starting the engine and driving off. The car window grazed my hand, scraping off a layer of skin. Blood poured from the wound. I turned to look at the spot where the ring had fallen, feeling as though something inside me had shattered. The ring I designed myself meant nothing to her. Just like me, I meant nothing. 3 years ago, Hailey confessed her feelings to me. She said, "Since we were both single, why not give it a try?" I was both nervous and excited at the time. What she didn't know was that I had liked her for many years. But back then, her heart and eyes were full of Tony. I thought she finally saw my worth. I agreed without hesitation. For 3 years, I treated her with unwavering love and care. I could feel her attitude toward me changing, from polite indifference to dependence and trust. I thought I had melted her icy exterior. I thought nothing could come between us. But in the end, as long as Tony was around, I would never be her first choice. I remember the first year we got together. Hailey was with me celebrating my birthday. Just as I lit the candles, her phone rang. She glanced at it and stepped onto the balcony to answer. When she returned, she said a friend was in urgent need and she had to leave. I'd always been accommodating to her, but this time, I asked her to stay. She left without a second thought. I knew it was Tony who had called her. He had even sent me a text. "Happy birthday. Here's a gift. No need to thank me." Reading the text made me uneasy. His gift was taking Hailey away from me on my birthday. Later, I saw Tony's post on social media. They had gone to Iceland to see the aurora together. Hailey stood next to Tony. Though they weren't being overtly intimate, they looked unexpectedly well matched. For a moment, I wondered if I was the unnecessary one. That night, my birthday wish was for someone who would choose me without hesitation. Even though I knew she was with Tony, I deceived myself. I thought Hailey would eventually forget him since she chose to be with me. When Hailey returned, she confessed she had gone to see Tony. She said it was a lingering obsession from her youth. She just wanted to give closure to that chapter of her life. She assured me they hadn't crossed any lines or done anything to betray me. At the time, having finally gotten together with the person I had secretly loved for years, how could I bear to let her go? I chose to believe her. Maybe that was when I became her second best option. Hailey, Peter, Tony, and I were college classmates. So, Peter and I knew better than anyone about Hailey and Tony's history. Peter always opposed my relationship with Hailey. He said Tony had Hailey wrapped around his finger. What if Tony gets tired of fooling around abroad and comes back for Hailey? He asked. What if Hailey can't let go of Tony? Outwardly, I said I trusted Hailey, but deep down, I was uncertain. I knew what Hailey had done for Tony in the past. Back in college, Peter and I were roommates. Tony lived in the dorm across from us. We often played basketball and video games together. Then Tony started pursuing Hailey. He wasn't well off financially, but he had a charming, bad boy look that girls adored. His pursuit of Hailey was bold and direct, publicly confessing his love outside her classroom, shouting declarations of love outside her dorm. One time, a drunkard harassed Hailey at the campus gate. Tony happened to pass by, picked up a brick, and smashed it against the drunkard. The man ended up in the hospital. Tony only had to pay for medical expenses, but walked away with Hailey's heart. They started dating. Back then, I only had a mild crush on Hailey. When they got together, I felt it was a pity. Such a wonderful girl shouldn't be with someone like Tony. I knew Tony had other flings. All the guys knew, but I still wished Hailey happiness. Until one mid-autumn festival, Peter and I returned to campus after dinner. We saw Hailey leaving the cafeteria alone. It turned out she was supposed to spend the holiday with Tony, but he had taken medicine and was asleep in his dorm. She handed me some food and asked me to deliver it to him. Seeing the worry and care on her face made me feel conflicted, because I knew Tony wasn't in his dorm. Before he left, he had even borrowed Peter's hairspray. We had joked about it. Tony had said he needed to look sharp for a date. When I returned to the dorm, I went to the room across to find Tony. His roommate said Tony had gone out with his second girlfriend. Seeing my confused expression, his roommate laughed and explained. He said Hailey was Tony's #1 girlfriend, while his second girlfriend was the campus beauty from the music department. I didn't tell Hailey the truth. That evening, I called Tony and told him Hailey had asked me to deliver him dinner. He chuckled nonchalantly and told me to go ahead with it, adding that I should make sure not to tell Hailey he wasn't in the dorm. He then hung up, saying he was busy exercising. Through the uneven breathing and faint feminine whispers on the other end, I realized what he really meant. I felt bad for Hailey and thought about giving her a hint, but before I could, Tony's second girlfriend, the campus beauty from the music department, approached Hailey herself. The two girls argued intensely over Tony. Eventually, they forced Tony to make a choice. He chose Hailey. He claimed he was momentarily bewitched and blamed it all on the music department girl, calling her a temptress who seduced him by sending him all sorts of provocative photos. He swore he didn't truly like her, professing that Hailey was the only one he loved. Hailey believed him. She even felt a sense of triumph, thinking she had won against the other girl. But Tony's roommate spilled to us that Tony had admitted in the dorm that he chose Hailey purely because of her background. While the campus beauty was stunning, she was from a rural area and had 2 younger brothers. Hailey, on the other hand, was an only child from a wealthy family. Peter knew I had a soft spot for Hailey, but he advised me against telling her the truth. Even if she doesn't believe Tony, he said, she might still forgive him after hearing his sweet words. Then you'll just be the bad guy. Back then, Peter was eager to set me up with someone else, hoping I'd forget Hailey. He even introduced his sister, Alice, to me, but I only treated Alice like a younger sister. After all, my heart still belonged to Hailey. I couldn't bring myself to mislead anyone else, and so Hailey and Tony remained entangled for years. The year we graduated, I cut ties with Tony completely. He had gotten involved with a female colleague at his internship and even got her pregnant. He asked us for money. I was furious, angry at how he wasted Hailey's time and hurt her. The things he said back then are still vivid in my mind. Hailey just lies there in bed like a dead fish. She's no fun at all. Peter noticed my darkening expression and tried to stop me, but Tony wouldn't shut up. He went on about how his colleague was more exciting than Hailey and how he wouldn't have cheated if Hailey had just dressed a little more provocatively. I couldn't take it anymore and punched him. I pinned him to the ground, punching relentlessly until several people dragged me away. Tony wiped the blood from his mouth, spat on the ground, and sneered. "Don't think I don't know you like Hailey. Let me tell you something. Even if I get bored of her, as long as I don't break up, she'll never be with you." Peter said I acted recklessly, but I only regretted not hitting him harder. Later, Tony went abroad. Hailey said his sister, who had settled overseas, took him with her. Some time passed before Hailey asked me to meet for dinner. She told me she had broken up with Tony. I didn't ask why. She looked drained. She began drinking often, and when she got drunk, she'd call me. I'd pick her up and take her home, over and over again. Peter called me this second male lead from a novel, the one who silently sacrifices everything, only to be rewarded with a pat on the back. I told him he didn't understand love, let alone unrequited love. Peter and I eventually started our own law firm. Peter joked that I was planning to stay single forever for Hailey. He knew how many people had pursued me since college, but I always turned them down, claiming I was focused on my studies. Even after starting work, whether it was colleagues, their friends, or even clients, I rejected them all because my heart still belonged to Hailey. Until one day, she confessed to me. Peter congratulated me and wished me happiness, but he still didn't like Hailey. I always believed time could heal everything, that it would help Hailey forget Tony completely, that it would make her realize who truly loved her. I told the guests at the engagement party that there was an emergency at work and apologized for canceling the ceremony. I smiled and said they could treat today as a casual gathering. A few of my close friends quickly joined in to lighten the mood. Peter angrily wanted to call Hailey, but I stopped him. I told him it was pointless, because I had finally given up. If Hailey could abandon me for Tony on this day, then it was over between us. Peter said I should have given up a long time ago. He said both Hailey and Tony were heartless. I saw Hailey again 2 days later. She looked exhausted as she returned to the home we had shared for 3 years. Seeing me sitting on the sofa, she walked over and crouched down in front of me. This was my fault. Let's pick another date and try again. She reached for my hand. Only then did she notice the bandages. What happened? How did you get hurt? Her voice was filled with concern, but to me, it sounded laughable. I pulled my hand away silently, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, Hailey, let's break up. She froze for a moment, then looked at me as if I was being unreasonable. Rocky, what do you mean by this? You're breaking up with me over something so trivial? Her voice grew louder and more agitated, as if the volume could dictate who was right, but I was too familiar with this side of her. For the first time, I let my anger show. Something trivial? Then what counts as serious? Tell me, Hailey, what qualifies as a big deal? Does it only matter when it's about Tony? Do you think my patience and tolerance make me a fool? She looked stunned, then panicked, a look I'd never seen before. In 3 years, I had never lost my temper with Hailey. This was the first time. She covered her mouth, tears welling up in her eyes, her face full of disbelief, but I had no intention of comforting her. In fact, I found her reaction absurd. I didn't want to waste words. I simply looked at her and said, pack your things and move out as soon as you can. She stared at me, still in disbelief. I lit a cigarette, ignoring her. She coughed from the smoke, but I didn't even glance her way. For her, I had quit smoking during our 3 years together. She reached out, trying to take the cigarette away. Smoking is bad for your health. Before she could finish, I cut her off. And who are you to tell me what to do? She stayed silent for a long time before softly saying, fine, I'll leave. She went into the room and began packing her belongings. 10 minutes later, she pushed her suitcase toward the door. Rocky, don't regret this, she said, then slammed the door behind her. At last, the world fell silent. I don't know when I fell asleep, but the ringing phone woke me, and I realized it was already noon the next day. It was Hailey's mom calling. She said she made my favorite fish soup and asked me to come over. I was about to come up with an excuse to refuse when she said, if you don't have time to visit, I'll bring it to you. I knew I couldn't avoid it. When I arrived at Hailey's house, both her parents were there. Her mom handed me a freshly peeled apple with a warm smile, constantly asking if Hailey had been stubborn or fought with me. They knew I was always patient with Hailey, never arguing back when she was upset or threw a tantrum. Even if she was angry, I would calmly comfort her. This time, the sudden cancellation of the engagement and my absence afterward told them something was wrong between us. Hailey is spoiled by us. If she's done anything wrong, just tell me and I'll straighten her out, her mom said. I didn't want to tell them about Hailey and Tony. I wanted to preserve her dignity. It's my fault. It's because of me, I said. Over the 3 years we were together, Hailey's parents treated me like their own son. They remembered what I liked to eat and cared for me like my own parents. No matter how much Hailey disappointed me, I didn't want to hurt her parents. Hailey's dad patted my shoulder, speaking slowly. Hailey is immature. Don't cover for her. I've already called her back, so you two can talk properly. Before I could react, I heard the door open. It was Hailey. She looked visibly surprised when she saw me. What are you doing here? I was about to reply when her father interjected. Rocky is my son-in-law. I asked him to come. During lunch, Hailey's phone wouldn't stop ringing. She ignored her food and her parents, lowering her head to reply to messages. Eventually, someone called. She answered, and without a word, stood up and left the table. I didn't have to guess. It was Tony. Hailey's parents' faces turned sour. Her dad slammed his chopsticks on the table, visibly upset. Her mom exchanged a glance with him before following Hailey out. I couldn't just sit there, so I went after them. Sure enough, Tony was at the door, still wearing a hospital gown. The sight of him made Hailey's parents' expressions grow even darker. Tony acted like nothing was wrong. Uncle, Auntie, long time no see, he greeted. The two elders remained cold and silent. Seeing no one respond to Tony, Hailey stepped in to smooth things over. Dad, Mom. But her mom cut her off before she could finish. Why did you bring him here? Is he the reason you're fighting with Rocky? Is that it? Hailey's mom glared at Tony and then turned to Hailey. Hailey didn't answer. Instead, she looked at me. What did you tell them? We'd been together long enough for her to know what kind of person I was. Did she really think I'd badmouth her behind her back? Or did she never bother to understand me? Though I was already numb, her reaction still stung. I no longer held back. Looking at her parents, I said, Uncle, Auntie, Hailey and I have officially broken up. The engagement is off. Goodbye. I left the house, and as I got into my car, I could still hear hear their arguing voices, but it no longer mattered to me. I hadn't told my mom about any of this yet. She hadn't been well lately, and I was afraid it would upset her. But when it rains, it pours. My mom's condition worsened, and she was hospitalized. For a month, I stayed by her side, taking care of her. The illness made her frail body even weaker, and she spent most of her time sleeping. One day, she seemed more energetic than usual. "Rocky, you've lost so much weight," she said. Those words alone nearly broke me. I forced a smile and told her I'd been working out, that I only looked thinner because I was leaner now. "And where's Hailey? I haven't seen her lately," she asked. My mom was always kind to Hailey. Every year, she'd knit her sweaters and scarves, even looking up modern designs online to match current trends. "Hailey's been busy with work, always working overtime. She came to see you, but you were asleep," I lied. My mom sighed regretfully. "Oh, you should have woken me up. I miss her so much." I couldn't hold it in any longer. I made up an excuse and left the room, washing my face with cold water to calm down. Once my mom's condition stabilized, I finally had time to get back to work. Peter and I had built a reputable law firm, and he told me we had just landed a big case. A real estate tycoon was divorcing his wife, and they were in a standoff over asset division. I'd heard of this tycoon before, a notorious playboy. His wife had damning evidence of his infidelity, videos and photos. She demanded 70% of the assets in the divorce. The tycoon refused but feared the evidence leaking. The case was at a deadlock, with neither side willing to back down. What caught me off guard was learning that the tycoon's lawyer was Tony. I knew he specialized in divorce cases abroad, and it seemed he wanted to use this high-profile case to establish himself in the local legal scene. At 11 p.m., Peter and I finished dinner and were heading home. When I realized I'd left my phone at the office, I drove back to retrieve it. When I entered, I found someone in my office. It was Hailey. She hadn't turned on the lights and was fiddling with something on my desk by the dim glow of her phone. I stood silently behind her, watching. Peter had warned me about Tony, but I hadn't expected to be betrayed by Hailey. I switched on the lights with a snap. Hailey gasped in shock, falling to the floor. Her eyes darted around, avoiding mine. I stepped forward and checked where she'd been. It was a tiny bugging device, hidden in the pothose plant on my desk, a plant she had given me. Installing a listening device in a law office? Have you lost your mind? I couldn't believe how far she'd go. For Tony, huh? You're doing this for him? I demanded coldly. Tears welled in her eyes. I just wanted to help him, she stammered. I laughed bitterly. Help him? By sabotaging me? Do you know how serious this is? If my conversations with clients are leaked, I could lose my career. My voice grew louder as anger overwhelmed me. All these years of love and patience, and this was how she repaid me. Get out. Just get out. My voice cracked. Hailey stared at me in disbelief, like she hadn't expected me to say such a thing. She muttered a shaky, "I'm sorry," and ran out. At the hospital, my mom's condition seemed stable, but for some reason, she kept saying she missed Hailey and wanted to see her. I couldn't bring myself to refuse her, so I told her I'd ask Hailey when she had time. Only then did she relax. After my mom fell asleep, I walked to the end of the hospital corridor and made my first call to Hailey since our breakup. She answered quickly, and I got straight to the point. I simply asked if she could visit my mom to ease her mind. I didn't expect her to hesitate. On the other end, I could hear her whispering to someone, muffling the receiver so I couldn't make out the words. When she spoke again, her tone was hesitant. "I can visit Auntie," she said, "but can you persuade Ms. Lee to split the assets evenly?" I hadn't expected Hailey to make a deal with me, especially one involving Tony. And during my mom's hospitalization, no less. Disappointment, sadness, and helplessness overwhelmed me, wrapping me in a suffocating fog. Hearing my long silence, Hailey grew uneasy. "I'll go see Auntie first. We can discuss Ms. Lee's matter later," she said. Before hanging up, I still managed to catch Tony's voice. He was complaining about how easily Hailey agreed. Hailey did come to the hospital. Outside the room, she even clung to my arm deliberately. I instinctively tried to pull away, but she whispered softly, "Don't let Auntie notice." I suppressed my expression and walked into the room with her, putting on the appearance of intimacy. When my mom saw us, her spirits visibly lifted, yet her gaunt face made even her smile look weak. Hailey hadn't expected my mom to be so gravely ill. Her eyes instantly reddened. My mom took Hailey's hand, urging her to eat well, to not work too hard. She told her that earning money was my job, and Hailey should focus on spending it. Then she scolded me for not taking better care of Hailey, telling me to cherish her. From under her pillow, my mom pulled out a square red box. Inside was a jade bracelet. "Hailey," she said, "I planned to give this to you at your engagement, but that day, Rocky had work. I'll give it to you now." She slipped the bracelet onto Hailey's wrist, then clasped our hands together. I don't know if it was my imagination explanation, but I felt Hailey's hand tremble slightly as she held mine. As I escorted Hailey out of the hospital, she seemed reluctant to leave. She scolded me for not telling her about my mom's condition earlier. Over the next few days, Hailey visited my mom daily. I felt a twinge of emotion. After all, her concern for my mom was genuine, and she never brought up persuading Ms. Lee about the assets again. But I never expected to see Tony at the hospital. As usual, Hailey came to visit my mom. I intended to tell her that I'd try to mediate Ms. Lee's divorce settlement. Before I could, I saw Tony. He looked every bit the polished professional, dressed in a suit, hair perfectly styled. Seeing my expression darken, Hailey hurriedly explained that Tony wouldn't enter the room and would wait outside. Tony, with a faux concerned look, said, "Rocky, I'm worried about Annie too, but if you're uneasy, I won't go in." Suppressing my anger, I walked into the room with Hailey. My mom held Hailey's hand, chatting warmly, just like old times. She said Hailey and I looked like a perfect couple, and joked that our future children would be beautiful. I held back the urge to cry and excused myself from the room. Outside, I saw Tony sitting on the hallway bench. I ignored him and stepped out for some air, but he followed. With a smirk, he said he wanted to chat. His tone was smug, completely unapologetic. "Thanks for looking after Hailey all these years," he sneered. "If it were someone else, I wouldn't have trusted them. Remember what I told you before? As long as I return, she'll never choose you. After all these years of playing the simp, you've ended up with nothing." His words struck like daggers. I felt suffocated, like I'd explode if I didn't let it out. But this was a hospital. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay calm. Seeing my silence, he pushed further. "By the way, did you know? The day before your engagement, Hailey was in my bed. Want to see how she looked calling my name?" He waved his phone in my face. I couldn't take it anymore. My fist landed squarely on his face, sending his glasses flying as blood streamed from his nose. Behind me, a familiar voice rang out. "Stop, Rocky, stop it." Hailey rushed over, crying out as she ran. She didn't hesitate to slap me. The slap wasn't painful, but its echo was deafening. It jolted me awake. It shattered whatever feelings I had left for her. Ignoring both of them, I turned back toward the room. Before I entered, I glanced back to see Tony smirking, his eyes full of contempt and provocation. My mom's condition gradually improved, but I still didn't trust anyone else to care for her, so I juggled work and hospital visits. Ms. Lee's divorce case reached a critical stage, and sometimes I was so busy I skipped meals. Peter suggested his sister Alice help out. She was interning at our firm, reliable, clever, and attentive. After Alice visited the hospital, we watched through the window as my mom ate more than usual, laughing and chatting with her. My mom praised Alice endlessly afterward. I finally felt comfortable leaving her in Alice's care. Peter and Alice were from a wealthy family, so I couldn't pay her for helping. Instead, I promised to cook for them when I had time. Peter joked that I had to make my signature braised pork, and Alice's eyes lit up at the mention of it. I couldn't help but laugh. The siblings had the same tastes. Ms. Lee's case concluded with great success. Thanks to our efforts, she received 80% of the assets, 10% more than she initially requested. The real estate tycoon turned on Tony on the spot, effectively ending his career in the field. Ms. Lee was thrilled and introduced us to several new clients. We handed out bonuses to everyone at the firm. My mom was discharged shortly after. She insisted on returning to her old home, where her caretaker resumed her duties. One evening, Peter and Alice came over for dinner. I cooked while Alice helped in the kitchen. Her company was refreshing. She kept me laughing with her jokes. Meanwhile, Peter lounged on the couch in his loungewear, calling out for drinks and snacks. During dinner, they showered me with compliments about my cooking, nearly elevating me to the status of a master chef. Then my phone buzzed repeatedly with messages. It was Tony. He'd sent me a series of photos with Hailey, all taken in bed. Peter noticed my expression and glanced at my phone, then swore under his breath. He asked if I still cared about Hailey. It was then I realized that my anger wasn't about Hailey anymore. It was about Tony's vile actions. Somewhere along the way, I truly let go of Hailey. Alice decided to join Peter and me on a business trip abroad, covering her own expenses. I didn't mind. I owed her a favor anyway. We spent 2 weeks working and another 2 weeks traveling. At first, I couldn't stop worrying about my mom, video calling her several times a day. Eventually, she got fed up with me. She said I interrupted her while watching a musical by sending her 2 videos. She even called Alice, asking her to stop me from disturbing her. Watching my mom vent to Alice, I felt a warmth in my heart. A month later, the 3 of us returned home. That's when we heard that Hailey's father was hospitalized. Peter and I rushed to the hospital immediately. It had only been a few months, but Hailey's parents looked like they had aged 10 years. The moment Hailey's mother saw me, she broke into tears. That's when I learned the truth. Hailey Hailey was pregnant. Her parents had no choice but to accept Tony. Tony, finding legal work unprofitable, decided to start a media company. But with no skills or connections, he convinced Hailey to give him all her savings. He even coerced her into mortgaging her house. In reality, Tony hadn't started a business. It was all a scam. He had fallen into gambling. He lost everything: Hailey's house, her car, and even her parents' villa. When Hailey confronted her parents about this, Tony followed her home. At first, he tried to sweet-talk her into borrowing more money. When Hailey refused and lashed out at him, Tony dropped the act and hit her. She fell, and that's when she miscarried. Her father tried to intervene, but was shoved by Tony, hitting his head on a table corner and losing consciousness. Now, Hailey was also hospitalized. I couldn't ignore what happened, not for Hailey, but for her parents. The properties couldn't be recovered since they were willingly mortgaged. But Tony's violence couldn't go unpunished. Thankfully, Hailey's parents had some savings thanks to my earlier advice. I helped them move to a new home, not large, but in a safe, well-guarded neighborhood. Tony wouldn't be able to cause trouble there easily. Hailey's father recovered quickly and was discharged. Hailey's physical health also improved, though her mental state was fragile. Just as I was about to file charges against Tony, he got into trouble. He had been running scams, pretending to be single and defrauding women. One target, a wealthy widow, turned out to be part of a criminal ring. Tony fell into their trap. Unable to pay, a fight broke out, and he accidentally left someone in a vegetative state. His assets were seized for compensation, and he ended up in prison. Karma had caught up to him. Peter and I reassured Hailey's parents that, at least, she hadn't married Tony. Otherwise, she might have been implicated. Life gradually returned to normal. Still, Hailey's parents often invited me over for meals, which I always declined. Peter joked that Hailey must regret her decisions and want me back. I just smiled without replying. After that, Alice started joining Peter and me for meals regularly, but she stopped telling jokes. Instead, she would bring up news stories about wives returning to their husbands just to drain their money, or those colluding with lovers to murder their spouses. Her tales were chilling. Peter and I couldn't help but shiver. Then Alice would suddenly chime in, "Rocky, remember this. Good horses don't graze on old pastures." Her tone was earnest, even stern. I knew what she meant. Her feelings were straightforward and genuine, but I wasn't ready for a new relationship yet. Hailey, meanwhile, started approaching me directly. She would show up at my office daily with lunch, tea, umbrellas on rainy days, or cool drinks in summer. I firmly rejected her every time. Each refusal left her teary-eyed, but she always returned the next day. Alice, on the other hand, smiled less and less. One morning, Peter informed me that Alice had called in sick. Without her around, I felt something missing. Later, my mom called, saying Alice had visited her the day before. She had bought my mom many things, carefully labeled them, and explained how to use them. Before leaving, Alice told my mom she might not get another chance to visit. My mom saw her wiping away tears as she got into the car. Hearing this, I became deeply worried and drove to Alice's house. That's when I finally realized I had fallen for her. Peter came along. He told me Alice had been in her room, not eating or drinking, meditating, as he put it. I shot him a glare. This was no time for jokes. When Alice saw me, she looked shocked. Her eyes, swollen from crying, stared at me intensely. She pinched her own face. "Rocky, is it really you?" The room reeked of alcohol. The girl hadn't eaten, but had drunk quite a bit. Seeing her soft, vulnerable state, my heart melted. I stroked her head and said gently, "It's me." She threw her arms around me and burst into sobs. It was as if all her pain and grievances had finally found release. I held her close, soothing her. After getting her to eat and sleep, I stepped out of the room. Peter, along with his parents, stood outside, beaming at me with knowing smiles. Alice and I are officially together now, but Hailey hasn't given up and still comes to the law firm to see me. Even my mom knows what happened, including why Hailey called off our engagement back then. Hailey visited her, hoping she convinced me to reconcile. My mom, soft-hearted as ever, couldn't scold Hailey and only advised her to move on. Alice and I have a strong relationship, but seeing Hailey approach me sometimes makes her feel insecure. I didn't want Alice to feel upset, so I took the initiative to meet Hailey. I was direct and told her I already have a girlfriend. The light in her eyes dimmed instantly. She tried to grab my hand, but I avoided it. "Rocky, I've realized my mistakes. Can you give me another chance?" I refuse to drag this out any longer. "Hailey, we're done. I love my girlfriend deeply and will never betray her. Please stop looking for me in the future." My words seemed to pierce her heart. She stood frozen, stunned. Without looking back, I left her behind, her voice echoing in a heartbroken, desperate cry for me. On my way home, I passed by a dessert shop. I remembered it sold Alice's favorite cake. I stopped to buy a few slices, imagining her joking about gaining weight while eating. The thought thought made me smile. I proposed to Alice. It was at an open-air bar. I invited our families, friends, and colleagues. Peter even helped reconnect Alice with her childhood best friend. Alice thought it was just a work gathering. When I brought out the ring, she was overwhelmed, crying tears of joy. She even reminded everyone to use beauty filters when taking photos. She was so adorable. I felt like the luckiest man alive. My mom and Alice's mom hit it off immediately. They both loved shopping and sewing clothes. They spent days designing a handmade wedding dress for Alice. At 2 a.m., I got a call from Hailey's parents. Hailey had attempted to harm herself. I hesitated but told them about my relationship. Still, Hailey's parents begged me in tears to visit her. I couldn't refuse their plea. I explained the situation to Alice, and she said she trusted me. To reassure her, I brought Peter along when I went to the hospital. Seeing me, Hailey forced herself to sit up. "Rocky, does this mean you still care about me?" Her mother turned away, quietly wiping her tears. "Are you really going to marry someone else? You're lying to me, aren't you?" I felt exhausted. Why didn't she cherish me before? Why now, when it's too late? "Hailey, take care of yourself and stop hurting yourself. Think about your parents. They can't take any more heartbreak. I really am getting married." She shook her head, crying, insisting it couldn't be true. "Rocky, you loved me so much. How could you marry someone else?" Peter couldn't hold back anymore. Ignoring my attempt to stop him, he snapped, "Hailey, enough of this. When you were with Rocky, you weren't faithful. Do you think we don't know about you and that loser Tony? Tony even sent your intimate photos to Rocky. What's the point of your tears now? Can't you just let him go? From college until now, do you even realize how many stupid things he did for you? If you have any conscience, stop tormenting him." Hailey froze, stunned by the truth about Tony's despicable actions. I gently reminded her to think of her parents, who are aging and fragile. Leaving the hospital, we noticed dawn breaking. Peter suddenly spotted Alice's car following us. He wanted to confront her about playing detective. I stopped him. Truthfully, I had noticed her car from the start and even slowed down to help her keep up. I understood her. After all, I was meeting an ex. As long as Alice felt reassured, I didn't mind. When you care for someone, their happiness matters most. Alice and I got married after a year of dating. Seeing her walk toward me in her wedding dress, I felt like I owned the entire world. After the ceremony, I accompanied her to change outfits. Peter informed me that Hailey had shown up. I hadn't heard her name in so long. I couldn't imagine why she'd come. Friends at the front door blocked her from entering. Undeterred, she climbed over a wall, arriving covered in mud and looking disheveled. Alice quietly asked if I wanted her to step aside. I held her hand tightly and smiled. "You're my wife. Why would you step aside?" Hailey stood there, her red eyes fixed on our interlocked hands. "Thank you for attending my wedding," I said politely, then turned away with Alice. There was no hatred left, nor any love. The once proud Hailey fell to her knees, pleading tearfully for me to look back at her. Her voice trembled, full of desperation. Alice, feeling sorry, wanted to help her up. I stopped her and gestured for Peter to assist Hailey instead. Hailey raised her hand, clutching the ring she once threw away. Her face was filled with sorrow. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry, Rocky." I replied calmly, "It's all in the past. Take care of yourself." With that, I left with Alice. I never cling to the past or allow ambiguity with an ex. It's the most basic respect for my current partner. The past is finally behind me. Cherishing the present is what truly matters. Thankfully, I found someone who will always choose me unwaveringly. The end. If you like Kitten's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.